On today's show, is a bronze medal worth more than an NBA championship? Plus, we have more details on what it'll take for the Warriors to re-sign Jonathan Kuminga. The question is, will they cave? All of that and more. It's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back to Locked On NBA. However you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making us your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. I'm Wes Goldberg, and today we are talking about the Warriors stalemate with Jonathan Kuminga and which players did enough at Eurobasket to earn a look for an NBA team, and we're doing it with the help of Locked On's local experts, and I have two of the best with me, as always, from the Locked On Nuggets podcast. He's a senior NBA writer for the Action Network, Matt Moore. Matt?
36 days until NBA opening night. That's where we're at. 36 days. If you want some good numbers, Marcus Smart wore number 36. Shaquille O'Neal in his final season with the Boston Celtics. Do you remember the big shamrock, Haize? He wore number 36. Dave Cowens, also number 36, and Kevon Looney, number 36. We got 36 days until NBA basketball returns.
From the Locked On Bulls podcast, he's also a Bears and Bulls creator for Bleacher Report. It's Haize.
Who's worried about that NBA basketball? EuroLeague starts in like 2 weeks. Go and watch EuroLeague basketball. NBL is already going on. But no, I'm excited about getting NBA basketball going too.
Some good company for Kevon Looney, huh? Good company. Let's start with Eurobasket, though. Over the weekend, Germany beat Turkey to win gold, but it was the silver and bronze medaling teams making headlines. Greece was led by Giannis's 30 points and 17 rebounds and 6 assists to beat Finland to win bronze. And after the game, Giannis, who I'm going to remind you, has 2 MVP awards, a Defensive Player of the Year award, an NBA championship, and a Finals MVP, said that winning bronze at Eurobasket could be the greatest accomplishment of his career.
This is one of the biggest probably accomplishments that I've ever accomplished as an athlete. I know I've won an NBA championship, but there's no feeling like representing your national team and representing 12 million people that breathe and live this national team. So this is probably the greatest accomplishment I've accomplished so far in my life.
Matt, you have to appreciate the sentiment, especially in that moment on that stage, talking with reporters right after a huge game to go ahead and take bronze and medal in this tournament. But what do you make of Giannis claiming that that bronze medal, third place, is as valuable as winning that NBA championship, maybe even more so?
Yeah, another red flag for the NBA, quite honestly. And it's nothing to take away from this. Like, I think it's awesome that Giannis is able to these guys do celebrate getting bronze and silver. Like, that's a big deal for them. And I love that because we're so used to, if you're not first, you're last. Like, that's the attitude that we have culturally pretty consistently. And I'm a big fan of being able to take success and joy in all of the victories that you take in life, because we take so many L's. Like, you're just going to take a lot of L's. But Haize, I do think it's a little bit concerning that no NBA player is ever like, what was the best is winning the NBA championship, because it all becomes about the money and it all becomes about the grind, and it winds up just being this long process where it's more about just trying to suck as much money as you can in the time that you have on the floor versus these environments where they play for the joy of it. We see that joy in other sports, and I feel like we used to have that in the NBA. We got to get back to a place where the league feels like somewhere where players do compete for money and joy a little bit.
I mean, I think you do have some players that do compete for joy, but it is different when, as Giannis said, like, you're doing it for your country. And I think that, like, we've talked about it throughout this tournament, the national pride that these teams have in these type of tournaments is just amazing. And you can feel it while you're watching these games. And so Giannis saying that, I mean, I took that as personally as he knew he's going to get a lot more enjoyment out of this tournament than playing for the Bucks this year. That's the way that I took it. But, I mean, it's great to see this moment for Giannis, who has accomplished a lot in his NBA career, to have something like this that you can visibly see. And throughout his play and him, being on the court when he was, that he took a lot of pride out of this tournament. So that made me happy for him.
I love that take, Haize. I love that take. I'm really going to enjoy this before I have to go back to Doc Rivers in a month.
Yeah, got to go back to Milwaukee. Like, yeah.
Was the NBA onto something though when they created this new All-Star game format, USA versus the world? I know we sort of criticized it before, but seeing how much these guys care about the international stage, I guess.
Wes,
Go ahead.
Wes, how much is Adam Silver paying you to ask us that? How much did he pay for you to ask us that as a
Not
question
enough.
on this panel? Not enough.
Not enough.
Okay, that's fair.
Now, if you ask me how much Aspiration is paying me to say that, that's a different question. It's a different question.
I just, I think it's part of it is the ability to celebrate with your teammates.
Yeah.
These are your countrymen versus, yes, I am here to represent Greece alongside my friend from Canada. No, like I'm sure Team USA will get up for it because Team USA has a uniting factor of like, let's remind everyone because they do take offense to it. And that could spark some of the competitive fire. Like maybe that's the process. It's just that Team USA is like, they have taken our MVPs. They have taken our championships. They're not taking this meaningless exhibition game in February when I'm extremely hungover. Like if that's the line that they draw, maybe then Team World is like, well, they're going to go after it. We're going to go after it. And you could actually get something, but it's going to have to start with Team USA drawing that line because I don't see that camaraderie being formed by the international team.
Let's talk about diss tracks. So we got Turkey's Alperen Şengün told reporters after his team beat Greece earlier in the tournament that Giannis is, quote, an amazing player, but he's not a great passer. So we're just trying to help him jump, close the paint, end quote. Giannis responded saying and telling reporters, quote, I'm a guy who doesn't like to talk a lot. I let my game talk. I'm going into my 13th season in the NBA. I've won everything, I guess now, including a bronze medal, end quote. Haize, was Sengun's comments out of bounds?
No. Let everything be in bounds. Like, let's bring competition back to this. Let's bring pettiness back to this. This has been something me and Matt have been on now for almost since we started this show. So no, I don't think it was out of bounds at all. Keep going with it. Matter of fact, I would have liked to see harsher comments towards Giannis.
I don't think it was correct. And there's been, obviously like, well, let's look at the numbers. One, the assists are not a good indicator of how good a passer you are. They're not.
True.
Now, Giannis does have more assists than Sengun, but it's not a good indicator. The difference is just like, look, Sengun is able to play back to the basket, high pinch post, finding cutters, etc. Giannis is much more of, we're going to get space in front of you, either an ISO or pick and roll, and it's downhill. How can you pass? But a big thing that we miss when we're evaluating passers is placement. We always just look at like, oh, look at the read. What an incredible find. But if you throw that pass at the dude's feet, it's harder for him to catch that and convert it. And then everybody's like, oh, no, he blew the assist. When in reality, it's like, you should have made a cleaner pass. Giannis's placement is great. He has great placement on those driving kicks. When he does dish, it lands right in the pocket where it should be for guys to complete passes. I think Şengün's a better passer, but to say to say Giannis is not a good one is incorrect. And you're going to see that this season now that he's got the ball in his hands with Dame gone.
He did say that he's not a great passer. So if we were going to try to parse his words a little bit, is Giannis at the level of a Tyrese Halliburton or a Trae Young or even a LeBron James or a Luka Doncic? I don't think anybody would put Giannis at that level. So maybe are we taking the words a little bit too literally here, or maybe not literally enough, depending on how you read the quote? Perhaps, Haize?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we're taking it a little too literally. I mean, like, Giannis is definitely not a bad passer. I think he's good, but like at the same time, I don't think we'd look at Giannis and say that we want him to facilitate the offense, and maybe that's kind of more what he was in line with trying to say, which I don't think is a bad take on Giannis at all.
What sucks is he's going to have taken so much heat off of this, right? There's been so many like social media segments like this on podcasts that he will then not do this because players do learn like it's not worth, like if you open your mouth about criticizing another player, you're just inviting them to amp up their performance against you. And so that's why all these players refuse to kind of engage in that kind of talk. Most of them, Draymond being a good exception to that rule. Like Şengün might get there, but I will say like this Turkey team ran its mouth the entire tournament. And while they clacked everybody until FIBA legend Dennis Schroeder showed up, and then that did not work out well.
We have more details on the Warriors' ongoing negotiations with Jonathan Kuminga, including a new offer and what it could take to get a deal done. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building the same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little bit more energy to your Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. If you've been listening for a long time, please support the show by finding us on YouTube and hitting that subscribe button. We've got more details about the ongoing stalemate between the Warriors and Jonathan Kuminga, according to ESPN's deep dive feature into the Warriors' negotiations with Kuminga this morning. The biggest disagreement between the two sides is mostly centered on whether the Warriors will include a team option or a player option on Kuminga's deal. The Warriors want Kuminga to take the team option and for him to waive his ability to veto a trade, basically making him a trade chip. And Kuminga is holding out for the maximum amount of player control, which would include, of course, a player option. Now, the Warriors have control over the situation because Jonathan Kuminga, of course, is a restricted free agent, but Kuminga's refusal to sign a deal is holding up the Warriors' other free agent moves. And the decision to sign a deal could play out up until the October 1st deadline unless either side caves. So, Matt, who has the most leverage in this situation right now?
I mean, the Warriors, they don't have to sign anything and he can't go anywhere. And if he gets an offer, there's no cap space, so it would be very easy for them to you missed your window, right? This is why I do not understand why they're upping their deal. This is why I do not understand why the Bulls gave Josh Giddey what they gave him. I do not understand this. This is insane to me. Why are you squeezing him if you're just going to wind up paying him anyway? Why are you going to give this guy $75 million when you did not want him to play down the stretch and you did not want him to play in the playoffs? And if it's like, well, the organization likes him, but Steve Kerr doesn't, okay, you're going to waste $25 million, even if you're like, well, Steve Kerr is going to move on after Steph is done. 2 years, 3 years. Steph's probably going to play until he's 40. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. Nothing about this makes sense to me, Haize. I do not understand this entire process. Why are you tying up this money? Why are you giving $25 million a year for multiple years to a player you do not think, as an organization, was good enough or helped you win down the stretch of the regular season when you needed to win, when you played your best basketball, or in the playoffs? Explain this to me.
Well, I think, yes, the Warriors do have the leverage in regards to any type of long-term deal, but let's not forget that Kuminga doesn't have to accept that. Kuminga also has leverage in the sense that he can take the qualifying offer. At that point, they're not going to be able to move him, and they're going to lose him for nothing in the offseason. So, it's not like the Warriors have the leverage if it comes to Kuminga wants the security of a long-term deal. If Kuminga is willing to bet on himself, tough out just another year in Golden State, and go back into the market in the summer of 26, then he has all the leverages. That's truly something him and his agent are not afraid to do. He has the leverage there. And so it's an interesting balance between the two, because if Kuminga wants to sign this long-term deal, him wanting to maintain some type of flexibility because of him having the option to get out of the deal because they could trade him wherever they want to at that point, I understand that too. So it feels like both sides want something. Neither one really wants the other side to stay and to stay locked in this relationship, but they have to right now to get something done. At the bare minimum, they're going to be stuck together for a year. This is like this. I made this analogy before. I think in this situation, this is like when you break up, but you have 6 months left on your lease. That's what it is. You both have to stay in the apartment for 6 months. And so I feel like eventually this is going to go where Kuminga just takes the qualifying offer. That's what I really feel like, because it doesn't seem like no matter what they're offering, he's not budging if he doesn't get that player option. And I understand it.
See, but when I was last in that position, Haize, I moved out and gave her all the stuff. I let her keep the bed and the furniture.
You know what they would call you nowadays, Matt? A simp. That's what they would call you. Now, you're not one. I want to be clear. I'm just saying that's what they would call you.
Because I wanted to do the right thing, right? And it's like, the other thing here is there's the whole, it could be anything, Family Guy meme, where it's like, oh, we got to keep Jonathan Kuminga. We got to be able to trade him. For what? He could even turn into Malik Monk in a first. Just trade the man to Sacramento. What are we doing? I don't understand any of this, Wes.
So, according to ESPN, the Warriors have increased their offer to 3 years, $75.3 million with a team option in that third season. So, again, team option, not a player option. That is pretty close to the annual value, though, that Josh Giddey did get from the Chicago Bulls, to Matt's point earlier. What strikes me as unique about the Kuminga situation in terms of leverage is that the Bulls weren't working on other moves. The Brooklyn Nets weren't working on other moves when they were dealing with Cam Thomas. The Warriors have reportedly Al Horford lined up. They've got DeAnthony Melton, Seth Curry, Gary Payton II all lined up, and all these guys are just sort of waiting. Golden State only has 9 guys under contract right now. We're 2 weeks away from training camp. And so that's where maybe this situation is a little bit different, where Kuminga has a little bit more leverage over the situation. It's basically like, hey, if you want to fill out the rest of your team, make me happy. But to Haize's point earlier, it does sound, again, according to this report, that maybe Kuminga is starting to warm up to just taking the qualifying offer, which would be worth $8 million, and saying, you know what, just give me the $8 million, and we'll figure this out next summer as an unrestricted free agent when I will have more control as an unrestricted free agent. I want to zoom out, though, for a second on this, because we've talked so much about restricted free agency and, frankly, how it's not working this summer on this show. Is restricted free agency just broken in the NBA, or is this sort of a one-off for this summer?
I think it's just not to say that it can happen again. I think we're going to see this happen maybe every 2 or 3 years. Like, the money just wasn't out there. There weren't a lot of teams with cap space, and a lot of the teams that did kind of announce early on they didn't want to have their money tied up and put an offer out on a restricted free agent where they can do other moves. So I think it was the market this year specifically. I think, for example, next year, especially when you look at restricted free agents like Jalen Duren and those guys who potentially could be restricted free agents, they're going to be teams that are going to be willing to put an offer sheet out on those guys. And there's going to be more teams with more cap space this upcoming year. So I think this is something that you will see happen more than what we have ever seen because of the second tax apron, but it's not going to be every year where restricted free agency goes like this. I don't think so.
I disagree. I think it's going to be like this every single year. I think the new CBA, this is where we're at, is the CBA is designed to squeeze. They couldn't physically, like literally in the structure of the CBA, restrict salaries anymore. So what they did was they enacted penalties and punitive structures to make it to where the only thing that teams can do is squeeze. Because too often the teams would come to their owners and be like, well, we don't want to lose this guy. Like, we really think it's important and his agent wants this. We can't risk upsetting him and blah, 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 blah. And now it's like, no, it's worth it. Because there's always this battle between what the GMs say and what the owners want, which the owners are like, win without spending. And the GMs are like, I just want to keep my job. And the GMs now are in a position where it's like, well, yeah, I want to keep this guy, but the downside is that we're going to be in the second apron and we can't do anything. That's not worth it. So yeah, I'll risk pissing him off to squeeze him. Look at next season. Keegan Murray, they have downgraded his evaluation by adding DeMar DeRozan, who is a plus-minus vampire for players like Keegan Murray. Jaden Ivey, who I have caped for and I probably have him the highest of anybody in our top 100. He's going to get squeezed, no doubt. Benedict Mathurin, if this season does not go well, right, or even if it does, Haize, if you're the Pacers, with no center, how are you going to go in next season and be like, yeah, we absolutely have to give Benedict Mathurin all this money when we've got Nembhard, we've got Nesmith, and Hallie's coming back? So there's all these situations where players are going to feel like they're worth more, and the teams are in optimal positions to squeeze them. Dyson Daniels, Jeremy Sohan, Jalen Duren, on and on and on. All these guys are going to wind up getting squeezed because they're good enough players to keep, but not good enough players to go ahead and shell out for.
See, I disagree. I think, like, especially you mentioned like Jeremy Sohan, Jalen Duren. Like, I think these are players that when you look at teams, they're going to be teams that strike out on their number one targets. And I think those teams in this upcoming offseason are going to be willing. Like, for example, I'll use my Bulls, for example. $118 million in cap space. They need a center. I completely see, like, the Pistons may want to try to squeeze Jalen Duren, but the Bulls may slide in there with the max level offer sheet because they need a center of the future. And why not take a shot at Jalen Duren? I just think that the situation next year, I'm not saying that what you're laying out here won't happen in the future, but I just think the situation that we're going to see teams in next season lends itself to maybe taking a bigger shot on those restricted free agents next year.
I think it's a fair point. I think we'll see which one of us winds up correct, because I think you can make good arguments for both sides.
Yeah.
One thing I will say on this, though, the fact that the NBPA continues to be like, yeah, sure, whatever, do whatever you want to those guys, continues to absolutely infuriate me. Take care of your young players. Those young players turn into your veterans. You're literally hurting the earning potential of your guys long term by putting them in this position. If one of these guys turns into a star, their salaries will be lower because they got squeezed in these negotiations. Quit just having the shortest view possible, NBPA. Like, they've done this with pensions on one side and RFA and rookie contracts on the other. Have a little bit of vision.
Do you think, Matt, that instead of having the one date where it's by October 1st is the last date to take the qualifying offer, should they work in where it's like, hey, by this date, if you don't have a sign and trade by this date, you can only either sign with the team or take the qualifying? Do you think that would help restricted free agency go a little bit more straightforward if you take options off the table as you get further into the process?
Maybe. I mean, I just wanted thinking that if you start moving those things up, right? If you put different, you can do this or this or this, that only helps the team, because then the player is forced into this position where it's like he doesn't get to wait for the team to kind of reconsider things and be like, all right, let's get this over with. The teams are going to be like, we got 3 months till camp. Whatever you want to do is fine.
I still can't get over a max deal for Jalen Duren. I haven't gotten over that part of it. But
I said the Bulls. Good. You act like the Bulls. We don't do smart things, Wes. So there you go.
He's really good.
Imagine Josh Giddey, Kobe White re-signed, and Jalen Duren.
And AK would go out there and say, we have 8 to 10 really good guys.
Which non-NBA players from Eurobasket have earned an opportunity to make an NBA roster? We'll talk about which players deserve a chance to make a team after this. Today's episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers a clubhouse flavor that you love without ever leaving the green. They say the game of golf is a good walk ruined, but not if you're doing it right with 5-Hour Energy. Who cares about how many strokes you have? It's fun to get out, enjoy time outdoors, and time with friends. Golf is all about good times, good people, and good flavors. The grape ginger lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit the number 5HEWin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. Thanks for making your first. The Locked On Podcast Network has a show for every team. Check out Locked On Warriors for more on the Jonathan Kuminga trade, restricted free agent negotiations, Locked On Bucks, Locked On Rockets, and Locked On Magic for more on the meddling teams from Eurobasket. Shout out to Bismack Biyombo for signing a 1-year deal to return to the Spurs. He joins Victor Wembanyama, Luke Cornett, and Kelly Olynyk as centers on that roster. But we're moving on and back to Eurobasket. We're calling these guys the Yabusele All-Stars in honor of players whose performance in an international tournament earned them a look for an NBA team. Matt, who do you think from Eurobasket, having watched the tournament, who stood out to you? Who do you think deserves another look maybe at the end for an NBA team here? You're muted.
Cash the minus 1,000 ticket. Isaac Bonga had a really phenomenal tournament, and he's like the number one name on this list, right? It's like he's like the guy that you look at and say, I can't wait for Slim Jesus to make his appearance. I'm very excited for this. However, my biggest name actually is not somebody from EuroLeague. It's an NBA player that's probably headed overseas. He's got an opt-out in case an NBA team comes calling, and it's a former Bull. And I'm dead serious about this. Talen Horton-Tucker. And I see Haize's eyes just like absolutely glazing over with disgust.
Because I'm about to go in.
Haize, you were plus 1.9 with him on the floor last year. Your defense was 4 points better. His shooting was bad last year. It was better the year before. And when you're in limited minutes and that kind of an offense, the variance is very wide. Like, THT is a player that I was out on with the Lakers, but he really did show me some stuff in Utah. And I do think this is a player that with his physicality needs some conditioning for sure as he grows into like a bigger body. But that dude plays with a lot of force. And I really do think that there's a good NBA player in there. And I do think that he is worth an NBA contract relative to the open spots or some of the guys that are on roster.
First of all, there's no reason why me and Taylor Horton Tucker should have the same body type and he's an NBA player. So that's the first and foremost thing there. Secondly, like Taylor Horton Tucker is a player that averages 8 shots to get 9.2 points per game for his NBA career. He's not efficient scoring wise. He's not a good defender. He's a player that he's able to put up decent numbers when you allow him to be a high volume player. That's why when he was with the Bulls, when we did put him in games, it was when everybody else on the roster was dead. And so at that point, he was able to get up a lot of shots and operate as a high volume player, but he's not good enough to be a high volume player. So you're stuck with a player that needs a bunch of shots to put up minimal points, and he's not a good defender. To me, like I get it in that he has the box score every once in a while that you're looking like, hey, THC had himself a pretty good game, but like it's just, to me, he's just not efficient enough. You can find somebody to put up an inefficient 9.2 points per game for you on 8 shots on any NBA roster.
The only national show having a Taylor Horton Tucker debate on a Monday. I just want to point that out, people.
Let's go, sickos.
Haize, is there another name that in Eurobasket that's better than Taylor Horton Tucker that you would take on an NBA roster?
Absolutely.
Right now?
I was going to go with, that's why I made the face when he said it, Isaac Bonga. I think I was going to go Seti Osman. I looked at Shane Larkin. But for Isaac Bonga, somebody who was drafted in 2018, he's still only 25 years old, right? So he's still an extremely young player who has a lot ahead of him as far as if he was like, this is a guy who's turned himself into a really good defender, best defender on Eurobasket in 2025. He also was best defender in the ABA league in 2025 as well. He was a Serbian league champion. This is a guy that I think when you look at the more modern style, the forwards that can do some ball handling, they're really good defenders. He's not an amazing shooter by any stretch of the imagination, but I can name a couple of benches that could use a player like Isaac Bonga on it. And he's one of those guys that he was just drafted too early. He was too young, too raw. And I think we've seen guys like him get a second shot at in the NBA and actually turn themselves into pretty decent NBA players. I'm not saying he'll be an amazing starter or anything, but I think he can craft out a nice role for himself on the NBA roster.
Kind of like Gershon Yabusele, who's this segment is named after. I want to point out this quote, though. So Shane Larkin was asked by Hoops Hype about, playing for Turkey on an international team versus playing in the NBA. Larkin obviously did have a cup of coffee in the NBA. He said, quote, I had an open mindset where I didn't want to do that third point guard kind of non-guaranteed deal, wait for somebody to get injured, end quote. Larkin basically saying, hey, I could be a journeyman in the NBA, hope to get some playing time and to latch onto a roster and just have that be my life for a few years, or I can go overseas and kind of just be one of the best guys and play 30 minutes every single night and know what my role is. And I love that he said I had an open mind. And he went on in that interview to talk about, like, when you're growing up, and especially in America, in the United States, it's always NBA, NBA, NBA. People don't really talk about potentially going overseas to hash out a basketball career. What do you guys make of Larkin's comment there? Because he was another one of the standouts in Eurobasket who, I don't know, based on his performance, he could get a call from an NBA team, at least for a training camp invite, but it sounds like he's pretty content, Matt.
Yeah, and like this is one of the things I think that, again, it really does kind of make me go like, man, this is a problem for the league. Because what you're effectively saying here is that if Larkin has two options, hey, I can really grow into being a role player, a great teammate, being somebody that hangs around, helps young guys, is everything coaches want, sets an example, and is ready to play. Garrett Temple. I'd rather go and be a prince in Euroleague than a pauper in the NBA. And like the money's better. That to me is like a problem. Like your role player that actually helps you win in the NBA should be more valuable than that. And that to me is like, if that's the direction. Now, a lot of this is just like, sometimes it's about what the player's attitude is or the player's game. Like Shane Larkin is not built to be like a floor general, right? He's better built to do what he's doing in Euro play. And that's part of that equation. Like Devontae Graham is playing for Belgrade, right? That's a good example of a player that's like, yeah, you can go over there and you can just make more money because like your third point guard's probably got to be able to play a little bit of defense. The only guys that can get away with not playing defense in the NBA are either 6-man level scorers off the bench or starting point guards. So that's part of this equation, Haize. But I do think it's kind of a bummer that that's like the decision-making process is like, I'd rather go over here and get stats and play my game than have to conform at all because the NBA doesn't make it worth it for me.
Well, I think it's not even like just getting stats; it's the fact of playing. These basketball players want to play the game of basketball. And Shane Larkin, who's to say that he would have really gotten off the bench in the last couple of years? He could have been a good locker room guy. He could have been good in some spot minutes. But just the fact that you're able to actually go out there and play the sport that you love, and like we've seen, a lot of these guys have a lot of pride in playing basketball. So you're able to go out there and do that. And I think that's the part in this. Some people just aren't cut out for the grind of the NBA, and they shouldn't have to be. Like, if you know you can go somewhere. I mean, we've had a similar conversation with Valanciunas. Not that he isn't going to play in the NBA, but like just that peace of mind sometimes that you can't put a price tag on. So if a player is like, rather than, even if I did make similar money being the third point guard on the bench and maybe play once every 2 or 3 games, I could play every single night, get 30 minutes per game, and actually, get heralded for what I do. Like that's a great thing there. So I understand what Shane Larkin, and he brought a level of honesty that we don't usually get to see players really talk about that.
Go live in a beautiful country, make some money, play 30 minutes a night, the game that you love. Doesn't sound that bad to me, as opposed to being like a guy who you're moving constantly every single year.
Yeah.
I mean, there's quality of life stuff, but
and for some people too, not living in the United States is a benefit right now.
It's very true. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Thank you to Matt and Haize for their expertise every day. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On NBA.